Mark Halpern sat
Yeah.
down with Tucker Carlson, and he talked about a lot of things that I think were really interesting, because I like Mark Halpern. I think he's a lefty. I don't know what his political registration is, but I'm pretty sure he's
risking himself at great.
I mean, yeah, he's a I think he's a lefty.
He is, but
he
he's risking himself, to tell you the truth. He really
talked a lot. I want to get into this with you here, because he talked about Mark Halpern, by the way, for people who don't know. He called the coup 3 days before it happened in the exact way that it happened. He has great sources within the White House, and he's talking specifically to Tucker Carlson. There's two clips that I want to play, but I want to first play you the one where he's talking about Joe Biden's thoughts on Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And he says what I've been saying, that the Democrats will rue the day they chose Kamala Harris to replace Joe Biden, because Joe Biden, he's an animated corpse. But he even as an animated corpse, he's better than Kamala Harris. And I think the Democrats are really regretting it. But listen to how Halpern talks about how Joe Biden feels about Kamala and whether or not she should or can be president.
I reported it against my instincts, because I did not believe Joe Biden would give the nomination up. First of all, it's embarrassing, and it's staying on his legacy, as much as they built it up as great for his legacy. But also, he believed that she would become the nominee in all likelihood, and that she could not be Donald Trump, and that if somehow she didn't become the nominee, he didn't think Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or any of these other people could beat Trump. And I think 2 years ago,
Biden didn't think Kamala Harris could win.
No. Or be a good president, as I understand it. So he was
really,
yeah. He from the transition forward, he told Ron Klain and everyone else, she needs to meet with foreign leaders all the time, and she did. I mean, she's had an unprecedented, kind of tutorial in that. She needs to be, supported and all that. We all know what happened. She did not run a good operation. There was leaking, and her approval ratings were ridiculously low.
What do the donors who put her there think of all of this?
Yeah. So I'd say impressionistically, because I haven't talked to them all, but impressionistically, about 80% of them are just, we got to look forward. The election's coming up. Trump must lose. We have to do everything we can to help. 20% say, how could we possibly have replaced, we all said the only Democrat who could lose to Donald Trump was Joe Biden. How could we have possibly played a role in replacing him with apparently the only other person who could lose to Donald Trump? She started maneuvering for the nomination well before the Sunday morning when he called her and said he was not going to run. And part of that was vetting of potential running mates, which her team knew that couldn't wait. That had to get underway. That's something, normally takes months. So I got a tip that was happening.
So a couple things, Rich. Yeah. I told people probably 2 or 3 weeks before Kamala was anointed, and I agreed with Mark. I didn't think that it was going to happen. I thought if it did happen, it would have to be her for all the same reasons that Mark laid out. But
we had started
vetting. She started vetting Shapiro while Joe was still president. I thought, oh my God,
she called Roy Cooper too.
Yeah, this might happen. We talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about all this. Yeah,
and
but I didn't think she was going to be able to pull it off either. I mean, just
clearly though, there's like Joe Biden, when Trump says he really hates her, speaking of Biden, I think like most other things, Trump is exactly right. I think Biden, I've been saying on the show, Rich, that I think Biden in his own way is trying to screw her over by saying things like Governor DeSantis is doing a great job, things like that. I don't know, man. Like, I think he's really pissed off at Kamala. I don't think that Biden cares whether she wins or loses. What do you think about all this?
He goes on to say that he thinks that Joe does want her to win. He's just not going to be a huge help to her, and that privately, and this is the way campaigns are, folks. It doesn't mean they're distancing. Well, it doesn't mean they dislike each other, but they do say, do what you have to do. But notice there's a reason she's not distancing herself from Joe Biden. And I think that's because she knows she's on thin ice with him. He could end her today. You know that? He could end her today. I got to say, though, I think he's in a point in his age His legacy is ruined. He's going to become the only president who was removed because he was senile. He won his own party's nomination, and then he was usurped by his vice president. He's going to be a laughing stock in the history books. I don't know how on earth you could support the person who did, and this is why Trump, I think his instincts are right here. No matter what Biden says and Team Biden says, there is no way as a man, Sean, and Joe Biden's old school still like you and I, he is. And there's no way that as a man, he can go home and look at himself in the mirror in the residency of the White House every day and be proud of the man he is. He was made a fool of. His wife made a fool out of him. She drug him out. At least he got to be elected president. I don't know what the consolation prize is there, but they were, it's basically elder abuse. They used him. The Democratic Party used him like a bitch. I'm sorry, just to get rid of Donald Trump in 2020, and then tossed him aside like an unwanted, raggedy dog with like scurvy or something. I don't even know, man.
Scurvy.
I'm telling you, they just how they treated him is awful.
Wait, what is scurvy? Scurvy's like a lack of vitamin C. Is this dog a sailor?
A sailor. Yeah,
cast aside the sailor dog.
Man, I'm telling you, the disgusting dogs on those ships back then. Okay, and Joe Biden was around for that shit. All right, he remembers. He came over on the Mayflower. This guy. All right. With the Catholic version of the Puritans, all right?
You're such an idiot.
Man, but I'll tell you, if you're him as a man, I don't know how you live with yourself. You were absolutely used and abused, and there's no way he could cheerlead for that. Let's get real. And he's been around long enough to know.
I agree.
I don't think Joe Biden believes the nonsense, his own nonsense that he pulls. You played the clip before. Joe Biden knows damn well that he went out to a microphone a year before Donald Trump ever announced he was going to run. And he himself said into the microphone that they would use whatever power at their disposal they needed, they had at their disposal to stop this man from ever being president again, to include what? Obviously, the Department of Justice. So Donald Trump announced he was going to run for president after he was being indicted. Before he was being indicted, not after. So it's like this idea like he's running to stay out of jail is ridiculous because he didn't know he was going to jail when he decided he was running again.
What a great point. That's a great. Yes, that's actually say that again. That's a great point.
Donald Trump announced he was running for president before he was under indictment or before he even realized that the back and forth between his team and the Justice Department and the archives, the presidential archives, were going to end up National Archives. Were going to end up in an indictment. He thought it was a normal back and forth process that every president is afforded, by the way, including Barack Obama, who had tons of stuff he wasn't supposed to have. Joe Biden had tons of stuff in the trunk of a car that he wasn't supposed to have, and he wasn't even president. All right. So he had no idea that they would twist the Presidential Records Act to turn into an indictment. Now, after he did leave the White House in 21 and went back, there were, of course, talks apparently with his advisors, and they said, lay low. We know that there's lawfare coming, but they didn't know it was going to be like that, John. They did. Come on. Who could have foreseen this kind of crap? Honestly. So he was running again for other reasons, look, I remember in 2015, I don't know. I wonder if I'm sure he does. In 2015 at a CPAC, which I hate going to. I hate going to political activist conventions, right? But I wanted to go because it's my job to see what's going on with the party and who's going to nominate who. I'm trying to get a pulse of what's going on. And Donald Trump goes up there and he's got no big name right now other than being Donald Trump. And he gets up on the stage and it's usually, it is at CPAC half full during that time of the day. And he gets up there and he says, I've flirted with running for president before, but this country cannot handle another Bush, another Clinton. It cannot be the usual suspects who have been running this country into the ground for decades. So, I'm being serious and earnest here, considering running for president. And I remember him saying that. And that was the takeaway for me. He's going to do it this time. This guy was deadly serious. You could say what you want about Donald Trump, but this guy really just does run for president because he loves the country. That is 100% true. You cannot say that about any other politician. I've met so many of them. They all have their own agenda. Trump has what? He's building his brand up. He's trying to get rich. He risked his wealth and his freedom to run for president. The guy is really the only guy in my lifetime who decided to run for president because he was truly concerned about the country and thought that he would do a better job.